Welcome to the continued adventures of Hilork Giac of Zen. Continuing to farm the abyss, and I think this episode shows, what's going on right now shows quite clearly that once a character that can worship Zen has reached Abyss, the game is essentially over, because he can just keep farming and becoming stronger until all of his skills are level 27, and he has a very strong collection of gear and max piety, which of course with Sanctuary makes it very difficult to die. So that's obviously a flaw in DCSS, a failure to live up to its design philosophy, since actually leveling up to 27 in all skills in the Abyss is very tedious. Anyway, as you can see, I'm hitting my stride now in the Abyss, and not really being challenged, getting comfortable with casting spells and so forth, getting my spell skills up towards secondary where they're reliable and useful to cast. Facing this blizzard demon, so I make sure he can't double bounce make sure he can't double hit me with lightning. Summon a Mana Viper, which is a huge improvement on the character's ability to face casters, which are really the counter to the warrior is the caster, the mage. Archers counter mages, mages counter warriors, and warriors counter archers. It's a little bit more detailed than that, but that's the basic triangle. And so having the ability to summon a Mana Viper removes the primary vulnerability of, largely mitigates the primary vulnerability of the Hilork, which is great. There's an Efreet, so I switched to my RF++ Morning Star and slow him down. Same on the skeleton. Thinking about whether I should step to him or cast another spell. Just decide to step forward, because he'll probably, it's likely that he'll stay there and continue fireballing noisily. May as well recite, since we've already made noise. And I get yanked to a different section of the Abyss, which was helpful. I'll try to follow this water course. Yeah, so at this point this character is completely at home in the Abyss. He's pass-walling, mana vipering, Shroud of Galubria, double regen, or 2 pips of regen. He's just a beast. His resistances are in good shape. I'd like to have a little more MR and a lot more RC. 2 pips more RC. So the resistance situation isn't ideal yet, but it's certainly very nice. And the amount of plus int that he can get is fantastic. Profane Servitor incoming, so he can drain and drain HP, which means that Shroud of Galubria will counter his vamp whipping. Go ahead and recite on him to. It's going to be a long fight, so I want to recite multiple times if I can. And I want the RN plus. I only need 1 pip of RN, I think, to prevent him from draining me with the melee weapon. Not sure if that's correct. It's not like a draining brand, it's attack effect. Anyway, what I eventually decided to do here is keep the sling so that I have very high RN. I'm not sure that's the right call. I mean, the sling is a strong weapon, so it's not a bad call. But, well, the thing that makes it good is that I'm able to fire through ads as they show up. So that's nice. And also, Zen has managed to Corona the Servitor. Got my Shroud, so I just put it back. But I do wonder whether a melee weapon would work better here. So the Shroud of Galubria is denying him healing, which makes it definitely worthwhile to recast. And I could blink around and stay out of melee with him and just sling him instead. But the fight wasn't so close that I felt like I needed to do that. Another successful jaunt through the Abyss. Tidy profit. Earlier today I wrote up a sort of definitive brief essay or several paragraphs on killing TRJ, and the conclusion I came to is that you want to spend several specialized resources on the kill. It's definitely worthwhile in order to avoid the risk of having to spend some generally useful resources either to secure the kill or to retreat and to redo. So I won't be messing around trying to do low-cost kills on TRJ anymore. So I developed a holistic strategy that's pretty aggressive in its spending, but I think it's justified. I don't agree with, for example, one of the most popular strategies with TRJ is to get into the tight hallway, tightest hallway available, and then net him and use a summoning scroll. And that costs typically multiple nets and a summoning scroll, and both of those are generally useful resources, so I don't like that. Particularly hammering your nets just for a TRJ kill, I think, is counterproductive. And something that's great in general, but pretty bad in slime. The eyeballs aren't that useful against TRJ's pack. And they're very squishy, so they don't last long. I don't mind using a net on TRJ, but the time to use it is when he's low HP and he's about to start, or his emergency flag is tripped, which means his AI will attempt to retreat. At that point, I think it makes sense to net him to secure the kill so he can't run away. And you're likely to get the net back doing that. So that's worthwhile, but trying to net him from the beginning, it's a poor choice because he's a fast monster. And so he's going to struggle out of the net quickly. There's a white draconian, his vulnerability is MR, so I just hex him into oblivion, and he had a nice Elec axe, so I went ahead and Takima's that. Yeah, now he's just totally screwed. The awesome power of the Hilork Gish. I don't know much about the Githyanki, but from what I understand, they're warrior hexers, and I watched the Baldur's Gate trailer, and they looked pretty cool, teleporting, riding on their dragons. So I imagine that Giac and the Hilork, essentially Hilork fighter in general, is something along those lines, although they were in leathers, which makes sense for riding dragons, but Giac is in heavy plate. So he's, he's obviously a zealot, that's his primary classification, and then melee is a close second, and spellcasting, or casting, is a distant third. Well, I guess casting is a distant fourth, because he's also a skirmisher at -1, whereas his spellcasting is -3, and then spell schools don't get better than +1, if I recall correctly. So wizardry is certainly his weakest role. Casting is his weakest role, but it's also transformative to the build because of the tremendous impact that having utility spells and the ability to attack low MR has on a physical fighter's gameplay. He doesn't need spellcasting for, he doesn't need casting for direct damage, at range. He has decent skirmishing ability for that with slings and throwing. It's nothing special at -1, but since he's going to be using a shield the whole game, it's a no-brainer to just stick with those two skirmishing skills and not worry about bows, certainly, and crossbows most likely. So because those two skirmishing skills cross-train and one can train them the whole game, they do very credible damage. It's supplementary to his melee, obviously, but it's very respectable. It's enough to keep casters off of him who try to outdamage him at range usually, and so forth. So he doesn't need damaging conjurations and similar spells, but the utility transforms the build. A Reaper, it's 10 speed, so I can just walk away until Recite is back up, and that's what I do, and get an easy kill. Nekasek, make an intelligence feed, so it's probably a good idea to vitalize. I just go with Recite though. Vitalize is quite cheap, and at this point I suspect my piety is maxed anyway, so I might as well just turn it on whenever it can be useful. Zen, people think that Zen is about imprison, and that's wrong. Zen is about Recite. You just want to spam that thing, and then in between, if you're caught without Recite, and you can just walk away for a while and pull a big crowd, and then go ahead and do that, and then Recite them again, particularly in the Abyss. Which this character is good at, given his evocable blink. But anyway, with Zen, high invo and high piety means that Recite just crushes stuff. So you don't really want to spend your piety. You want to keep it high, which grants passive protection against killing blows, just like Ellie, and also makes your Recite just devastating. I think I recited there and got the Cacodemon debuffed. And I'm going to recite again on all these orcs. I could just walk away from them, but there's no reason to. The Abyss is largely about killing stuff faster than it can spawn around you, so if there's an opportunity to do damage, I'll usually just take it, particularly with this character where he's easily able to damage the spawn rate on Abyss 1. If this were deeper in the Abyss, then it might be wise to conserve recite more and rely more on stealth, and then when I do get caught and surrounded, then recite, run, recite, like so. But that's not necessary here. The Abyss tends to favor certain loot types strongly over others. So one can sort of tell when one has farmed it enough when those categories of loot start to pile up. For example, one common category is scarves, and so I don't have the full collection of scarves yet, so it's worthwhile to keep going on that score. I'm picking up a lot of scimitars, scrolls of vulnerability. Remove curse is quite common, of course. Lots of ammo and gold. Vitalize when I'm in that chaos cloud. I have to be careful with this crab. I try to blink out of the cloud and that works. Start preparing. Decide to target his poison vulnerability. The Venom Flustibulus. Farming the Abyss is also an opportunity to level some secondary skills or tertiary skills that become much higher value in the Abyss, such as stealth, translocations for apportation, earth, magic, and transmutations for pass wall. So it's nice to, even if the XP isn't the greatest, those secondary and tertiary skills don't take much to level. So filling in the character's utility capabilities is nice. So farming the Abyss isn't going to improve your character in the same way that advancing in appropriately leveled branches will. It's not going to do for me what Zot would, but it does provide unique benefits that eventually start to hit diminishing returns, and so at that point it's time to probably go for the rune. Of course, once one has the rune, then it's much safer to farm the Abyss, because exits spawn more frequently, so it's definitely a nice thing to have. Provides security against being abyssed by hostiles, and that allows one to dive deeper in the Abyss while farming for better loot and better XP. At this point, bone dragons aren't a significant threat. I'm not even bothering to vitalize, which is not an efficient counter to bone dragons. They don't apply negative status effects, but a stat boost can be a nice edge in a difficult fight if you're worried. Yeah, that Nekasek just intelligence fed on my intelligence, so I'm going to start vitalizing whenever I see them now, so I don't want to lose any more intelligence. Temporarily being down 3 int is no big deal on this character. It's his least used stat, but the lower your int, the more losing 3 hurts, so I don't want to lose any more than that. Plus, it's just an efficient way to do it. If you're trying to conserve piety, then it's acceptable to get stat drained once, and then the XP that one earns will start earning back those stats. But getting double stat drained makes your character significantly weaker, and you're already using the XP to work off stat drain, so the second stat drain doesn't affect whether that XP is being wasted or not, that regenerative capacity is being wasted or not. So if you game it out, efficient way to do it is to aggressively vitalize when you're already stat drained, and be less aggressive about it otherwise. Because you want to reduce the amount of time you spend stat trained multiplied by the average amount of stat train. So it's better to have 2 instances of being trained 3 than 1 instance of being trained 6. Even though the amount of time that you spend stat trained is the same in both cases, the average amount of train is higher when you're trained 6 all at once. BO smites me. Another reason not to start diving deeper is that at any time BO can still smite me for half my HP. Or maybe a bit less than half. So there's no reason to get aggressive. At least until that wrath is worked off, and the Abyss is the safest place for that. And safety is just a sanctuary teleport ambrosia away. Juke out that Starcurse mass while I'm half HP. So the result is that the essential Hillork fighter is working off his BO wrath and total safety while farming the Abyss for various stuff that he doesn't have much of or doesn't have any of. It's all just efficient and effective. Speaking of vulnerability scrolls and farming them in the Abyss, TRJ is a great fight to use vulnerability scrolls in because once you clear the floor, there's nothing that can hex. From his jelly spawns. Torment is also an excellent scroll to read there because he doesn't spawn jellies in response to Torment. So what you can do is, and this is one of the main, two main strategic approaches to the fight. I guess it's operational. The two main operational approaches to the fight. either you quaff lignification, which is a specialized resource that sort of declines in value as the game proceeds, so it's a good thing to have a use for it. So you get into the tightest corridor, quaff lignification, re-torment, and that cuts TRJ's HP in half. The other operational method is to face him out in the open and use sticks to snakes with inner flame and blink. In either case, one wants to be hasted because it's an action per second fight. Well, it's a speed fight. And TRJ is going to develop a strong move advantage when he spawns his allies, so haste is important, particularly since corrosion stacking up is a existential threat. And so haste counters that, along with our core, of course. I was just considering the tactic of phantom mirroring TRJ, doing lignifying, then reading vulnerability, then phantom mirror, retreat your TRJ off screen, torment TRJ, and then your TRJ comes back at full HP to fight the half HP TRJ. Presumably beats him up, which spawns a bunch of jellies. Your TRJ dies, you immolate, and then detonate. I mean, would that work? Would the phantom mirror last long enough? I don't know. Yeah, I'll have to test that. That might be pretty good. Running away from this crystal golem. Don't want to overtax my resistances while I'm dealing with that eidolon as well. I want to get Shroud up for this hungry ghost. The abyss puts pressure on food supply, so hungry ghost is a concern. But Shroud works great for bending away these weak attacks, so I don't think he gets me at all. There's the exit. So the eidolon is unsuccessful. The reason to take gates down into the abyss deeper is so that one can still spawn a gate via kills while searching for the exit. Via kills while searching for the rune. It's unwise to bypass the kill gate when it spawns, and exploring without descending will trigger the exit before will trigger the kill exit before one descends deep enough to find the rune. Dropping off my abyss loot. Having a bunch of amnesia is great, since my tertiary casting skills are rising to respectable levels, which means that the spells I want to cast are changing. I'm interested in Lita's liquefaction to give me the option of becoming a deep elf blink archer when facing overwhelming melee threat. That would synergize especially well with Zen's Recite and Regen. Allow me to hex, recite, regen, and plink stuff with the sling. Oh yeah, when doing the lignification torment option, one had better have portal projectile and something respectable to send through it, or one is not going to be happy with one's inability to reach out and touch TRJ. Line of sight the Death Knight. And poison him, which my regen can handle even if he's reflecting injuries. Got to beware of his agony. Get my MR up so that that's not possible. Definitely don't want to lose half my HP. Since he's reflecting injuries, I just use Confusing Touch on him. Let that clock tick down. Now it's off, so I went for the trident, but he woke up, so then I poisoned him to max and chop him down with the beat him down with the Morning Star. Confusing Touch is still relevant. Whenever there's a problematic OHD monster. Plus having the quick blades makes it a lot more viable in the later game because one can apply it more quickly, which makes the opportunity cost of doing damage much lower. Reflection for the Wretched Star. Recite annihilates or something. Eidolon, using the Recite and the Mana Viper. Trying to decide whether to prioritize MR plus or RN plus. A bit difficult to decide. Vitalize won't prevent fear. I decide I care more about not getting feared than about a bit of drain. And the Mana Viper is doing good work regardless. finish him with the sling to keep my RN up. Can't fire through multiple, so I step inside and finish with the axe. Mana Viper for the Rakshasa. You can still Phantom Mirror me, which would be dangerous. Now that I have Mana Vipers, I don't resort to the anti-magic weapon unless my MP is already that low. Hexing up the Hungry Ghost. Smoke Demon is smiting. This thing can dispel. And he's got Azukuba's armor, which is great for Draconians. getting a little crowded. Hexes are figuring prominently in my tactics here. I like to slow the Euphetibus, the noxinol, to reduce the amount of iron shots in Ephetibi that he produces, since probably won't be able to get to the center of his pack for a while, so it's a lot of actions he misses as a result of the slow. Recite is devastating to the tentacled star spawn. Still confused, which totally shuts down his tentacles. There's 3 vulnerability, which is a great stack considering how rarely it's worth using. Really, one needs cancellation as insurance, which is still an extremely rare resource in this game. Here comes a World Binder, so put a Mana Viper on it. Limit how bad things can get. Switch to the axe and finish it off. The Wretched Star is no threat since it can't be mutated. The pinwheels are vulnerable to Recite. The donut is not. Spatial Maelstrom and Vortex. Okay. And this thing can abyss me, so I want to have Shroud up, and maybe I should even be blinking away from it. A bit difficult with this sling though, minus Telly, which will resist most of the translocation effects except for abyssing. But it's not a big deal to be abyssed from Abyss 1, so. Even with Beowrath. And there's the exit. We got artifact gloves and a rune scarf. It's a good haul, and the vulnerability, very good haul. Plus amnesia, always welcome at this stage. So now I'm going to head back and find out what this artifact gauntlets are, and generally drop off my loot, find out what the scarf is, and what will wind up happening is a significant rearrangement of my resistances into what I believe is a much stronger configuration. With higher MR, higher cold resistance. It's a trade-off, but anyway, you can follow that without commentary if you like. It's just out of combat inventory management. So I'm going to end the voiceover commentary here. Thanks for watching.